Welcome back, my dear students. So let's get started and complete what we have learned over the classes, right? And we are going to create a complete database-based MVC, fully object-oriented login and register module today, right? So for that, we are going to just go to Paint. Let me show you the things that we are going to achieve today. Right, first thing that we are going to do is draw a complete MVC based design. So this is model, or this is the view, right? And then what we are going to do is create a model, right? And then also the third, right, last but not the least, we are going to create a controller, right? I told you about MVC, that is model, view and controller. So I told you about MVC patterns, right? So we are going to draw a normal MVC pattern right here. So this is going to be our view, or we can say user interface, or you call this view, or you call this UI, or you call this as presentation logic, right? So whatever you may call it, all are right. All right, so whatever you may call it, you can call it, right? And this is going to be our model, right, or data persistence, and this is going to be our controller, or you may call this as business service, right? So it's going to handle the business logic, right? You can see here or, right? So view is going to give data, right, to, right, the model, or what we can say that the model is going to take data from the view and it is going to pass the same data, right, to the business logic, or we can say it's going to pass the same data to the controller, you may say, right? Controller is also right, right? And controller is going to give back different things, right? Number one, controller is either going to give a message, or the controller is either going to give a response, right? So we'll just keep it like this. All right, so I can just, this is very good. Now model in between is doing the give and take of data. I told you, if you remember the example of the customer, all right, I've given you the example previously. If you remember this customer, then we have waiter, and we have the cook. So cook is doing cooking, doesn't know who the customer is, and customer is eating, doesn't know who the cook is. Model is doing the give and take of we can say services, right? So this is called as model, view and controller designing pattern. So we are going to apply this modern model, view and controller designing pattern today, right? And we are going to get connected via complete object-oriented methodology. So we're going to find complete object-oriented methodology. And further, now what this model is going to do is going to get, this model will surely get connected to the database. So this is going to give our controller, right, or our cook, right? So I can say like this. So this is going to give the controller, cook is basically not this, the cook is this, right? So this is going to give our cook, or we can say our controller, right, DB context. So it's going to provide us the database connection. What does it provide? Connection, right? Or we can say it's going to provide the DB connection, right? All right, so let's see this. So this is going to provide us database connection, and this is where, right, we can say we are requesting, right? And the request and data object, right? Request and both request and data object will then go to the controller. It's very simple, so it has no hard-coded logic, or it's not a rocket science, right? So let me just try this. So request and data object is going to go to the controller, right? Controller is going to give us the response and the response right here, all right? Okay, so let me take this response here. The same response is going to be given to the client, right? So the same response, right? So now you request, right? Once we request, we provide username and password, right? Model takes the data and we pass the same model object to the controller. Controller gives back the response, and yeah, it gives back the response. So now let us start doing it, and let's start first, let's say about registering, and then we have to do many different things, right? Okay, let's get started with Spider, because we have to write many different things. So we will be using Spider today. All right, so till the time it starts, so we'll have to still start Anaconda Navigator in order to start the Spider. Right, by the time it starts, so let me show you a few more different things that we are going to achieve. So this is the view, all right, and view is going to provide, right, there are going to be two views. One is register and another is login, right? So view is going to provide details, all right? So these are going to be registration and login details, right? It's going to be filled in the model object, all right? So the same model object is going to be called in the controller, all right? So controller is going to get DB connection, all right? And is either going to first validate and then write register or login, right? So it's as simple as anything. It does not include any rocket sciences. So let me close all the files today, right? And let me start by creating a view. Or let's first start creating, let me first start creating a model. So I'll mark this as model, right? And it's going to be class users. So now we know it's going to be class users, and it is going to have some private members, right? Or data. So I will go with, we've already seen that how do we create private, right, and how do we create class variables and so on and so forth, right? So we're going to apply the same methodology here, right? So we have seen how do you create the things that you do not want to get accessed, right? Or you do not want to access them outside, or things that you do not want to, you want to create accessors and mutators of, all right? So I will just create this, and I will call this as user name, right? So I call this as username is equivalent to this, and I can go inside the class and I can say password and just initialize it with nothing, right? And I can say f name. Why am I creating these? Because they are not accessible directly outside the class, because we don't want these to be accessed. We want the getters and setters of them to be accessed. And I can say L name is equivalent to, and then I can say first name, last name. What are the things that we actually enter? So we'll have to go to the database and see what are the things that we actually meant to enter. So we have user first name, last name, username, password, email. So I'll use the same first name, last name, username, password, email. All right. So I'll use email is equivalent to this, and we have contact, that we say contact is equivalent to this date and address, right? So I can say date is equivalent to this, and we have address is equivalent to this, and we also make user ID is equivalent to, right? So it's an integer, so we'll initialize with integer, and I can say message just to get the message, right? Or error messages, so we'll use this. So now how many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 data members. So we can say we're having 10 members, right? So I'll go inside the class again, right? And if I want to initialize anything in the constructor, I will. So I will go with the constructor right here. It's not required. If you want to go, you can go. I can say define init, right? And I'll pass self only, right? So we are not doing any best thing or any greater thing in here. All right, so I'll just say pass. It's just declared. I'm not doing anything here. If you don't define the body of any function, let it be a constructor or a class, and if you do not define body, then you'll have to say pass. So I will run it and check for errors, and I will save this as model, right? So I'll simply save this as model, right? And let me run it. Absolutely no error, right? So the second thing that I am going to do is now create accessors and mutators, which call this as getters and setters. So first thing that I'm going to do is create getters. For that, I will define a function known as get user name, right? And I will say return, all right? So we have to return a class variable here. I repeat that this is now basically a class variable that we are returning right here. Okay, now if you want to return, then you have to use self, or if you do not want to return, let me show you first, right? So this is, I will say return, what is the name of the class? So I will say users dot, right, user name, right? So I'll just terminate it. So now if I say, let's make an object of the class, I can say users, right, equals, or we can say u as an object of class users, right? And I can say print u dot get username being a function, right? So for example, I want to get the username now. Whatever is in this username, I want to get it. So I can say Fahim, right, or anything. So let's see whether we are able to print. Object has no attribute, get user name. So we have to pass self here. Users, is it users? Yeah, it has an object get username, right? Why isn't it giving me? So I can say u is equivalent to users. What kind of error is this? Undefined name users. So I'll have to go outside the class. I'm printing it inside the class, sorry. Right, so now we can just go, yeah, I'm getting FAHL. Right, so it's absolutely right. Even if you don't have this self, so it's not going to matter at all. Right, yeah, no, self is going to matter. Sorry, my mistake. All right, so now we have tested it, right? So that's fine. I don't want this, so okay. So this is what we call as getters. What is this getter doing? Whatever is in this username will be returned, right, to this get username, right? What if I do something like this? Okay, we are getting fine. What if I don't use this users? I directly return the class variable, right? So we'll get undefined because it's a class variable. So I'm using the name of the class. Can we use self here? We can even use self, so there's no problem. We can even use self here. So let's say we are using self. Second thing, that if I want to access the class variable directly, for example, underscore username. So I want to get it directly. So I'll be using this. Well, it's prohibited because it's hidden. It's not found. It can never be found with the help of object name right here, right? Okay, it's very simple. We have declared a member variable. It's a class variable, but why underscore underscore? I want this variable to be only accessible within the class. I don't want the variable to be accessed outside the class. That's why I'm creating getters and setters, or what do you call that as accessors and mutators, and these are known as getters, or you can say accessors as well. Alright, so now how many accessors do I intend creating? Right, so I'll say 2, and then I will go ahead. Right, I'll say 3, I'll say 4, I'll say 5, 6, 7. Right, how many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So we just have 7, 8, 9, and 10. So these are the accessors that we're creating. Second is going to be get password. Right, third is going to be get right f name. Third is going to be get l name. So whenever you're creating getters and setters, like say about get username, just after get, keep the first digit after get capital so that you remember the coding conventions. Right, here it should be all small for coding conventions, and here just to remember, getter always has the first digit after get capital, and setter also has the first digit after, first letter of after the set capital. Now let's say what if it is set username, I'll say set, and the same capital username will come into the picture. So that's coding conventions, so that you remember what is coming. So we have created f name, l name, and we can say get email. I can say get user ID. Right, I can say get contact. I can say get message. Right, I can say get address. Right, so we have used it. So first have a username, password, first name, last name. So let's just do this. So return self underscore underscore password. So here return self underscore underscore f name. Here return underscore underscore l name. So here return underscore underscore email. So return here underscore underscore. Okay, get user ID. U has to be capital. So now I will say user ID. Alright, so now let's return underscore underscore contact. Let's return underscore underscore message, and here let's return underscore underscore address. Right, so what is left? Message, user ID, address, date is left, so you can say get date, and I'll say return underscore underscore right date. So now what we have been able to create are the right accessors or the getters. Now let me go ahead and create setters, also known as mutators. So I will define, right, so set username. Now what is the function? So what is the function of this function set username? Right, it is going to write to this username. This is reading, this is writing. Now how do you write? Because you have to take a parameter to write. That's why setter always takes one argument. I will take param. So this is the one argument that this setter is going to take, and I will say, right, now see this, I will say self dot. Now can we access self here? No. I can say now class, I can say user dot, right, now you can use underscore underscore username, right, is equivalent to param param. Now let's see, I'm not supplying anything here, right, param param. Let's say we're not supplying anything here. Let's call set and then call get. So how do you call get and set? Go make an object of users. I'll say u is equivalent to users, right, and then I can say print, or okay, let's say u dot set user. So we have u dot set username, and I'll setting the username as FAHIMKHEN, right, and now I can say this is test. You should test. Unlike if you do not want to get many errors, right, you cannot write everything. You cannot just make the controller, make the model, make the view, and then compile everything. Then you have 300 errors, and most probably you're going to leave your laptop and desktop and run away from it, right? So that's not going to happen, and that's not the case that you should be following. Should be unit testing each and everything, right? And once your model is tested, then go to the view part and then go to the controller part. It works like this. I can say print u.get user, right? So you can see u.get user, and it's a function, parenthesis is required. Now I can run, right? Okay, we did not take self here, so I'll have to take self, right? So we are getting Fahim Khan. So you can even say self dot username is equal to parent. So this is also going to work, right? Now you can say setter and getters both are working. If I say FAH, I'll get FAH, right? So set and get are both working. So now it's tested, right? And I will copy them, and I'll have to make 10 of them. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So what is after username? I'll say set password and then set, right? I can say F name, capital, the first digit has to be capital, remember this, all right? And I can say set L name, and then we have set email, set contact, set message, set username, password, first name, last name, email, contact, set address, right? Set date. What is left? Username, password, first name, last name, email, contact, date, address, user ID. So I can say set user ID. So now we have made it, and now we can say whatever parameter we're supplying, I'll say that parameter goes to __ password, right? And here this parameter goes to f name because we are setting f name. I'll say f name, all right? And here I will say L name __ L name, and here I will use email, all right? Okay, and here I will use param is equivalent to contact, all right? What is happening? You call set contact and you pass one argument. That argument is taken and given to the contact. That means this is writing, and here it's reading. It's not a hard code logic, it's not a rocket science, right? It's very easy. And here set message will set message variable. So we know this, right? So we don't have to. Set address is going to set the address variable that we have made, member variables, right? And set date is going to set right to the date variable, and set user ID is going to write to the user ID variable. So now our accessors and mutators are ready, and our model class is also ready, right? And what I do right here, I'll keep the object of the model class ready, or if even you don't want, you can create the model somewhere else. Let's say I don't want to create the model object here, so let's keep it like this, right? Getters and setters, one function to write to the username and another function to read from the username, and __, so that these are not directly accessed when the project or model object is created. Now I'll create new file, right? And here I can easily see that what we have done, we have created class user. So let me go right here and type the same. We have created class users with these member variables. Isn't it simple? Yeah, I will say sir, yes. I can clearly see this is what we are doing in the model, right? So I'll say we have created class users, right? And here we have created member __ member-variables, member variables, and here we have created getters, and here we have created setters, right? And the name of the class is users, and the name of the file actually is model, right? So I'll go and create my presentation logic now. So the first presentation logic is reg, or I'm creating login. So I'm creating login today. So this is going to be my view, right? Or view or UI, that is user interface. So here what I do, right? So I can print, I'll say, hey, I need to print, all right? I can print this welcome, right? And after printing this welcome, I can say print, all right? Right, and I can say print, or let's not print, let's say I want to now use users class here. Now how do you get link? You have to create a link between this user and, let me take a look at the time, we still have a maximum time. So we have to create a link between this model and this login class, because they're two different files. So I can say, right, either import import, right, model, right, and it works absolutely fine. Now you can say you have imported model, right, and it is a string, so I have to make sure that it's printed as a string. Right, now you're getting welcome and model has been imported successfully. Or we can say import model as M, right, and then you can say, right, if you're creating, so you can say u is equal to m dot users. Now you're creating an object of users, which is again here. Or you can directly say from model, right, calling the file name model, and there is a class inside this users, so you can import this. So I can say from model import users. That is as simple as anything, right? You can say u is equal to users. Now you're creating an object of users and it's working absolutely fine, right? And now we can say, you can do this, you can say u dot set, right? Either you can say u dot set user name, and that username is going to be input. Take input from the user and say please write your user name. That's absolutely fine. Now the user writes the username. All right, wait a second, I'm getting a call. I'll pause the video. All right, and now what we are doing, set username, take input from the user and set it. Now how cleanly we are doing things here, you have to remember this. I challenge you to show me a single video online showing you these things, so they don't show you these things, right? This is internal development secrets that do things cleanly, and this is how cleanly we are progressing and doing things. And now we can say set password, right? And we are setting the password. Please write your password. It automatically goes to the model users. Now you can clearly see that the link behind, there is a link created, right? All right. And now it's already set. Now you don't have to do any different thing right here. What you have to do, right? Take it, and now just for your sake, I'll show you that the model is completely working fine. So I can say u dot get username, right? And I can say print u dot get password, right? And now we can print them. All right, so now we are getting it here. Print your username. Please write your username. I'll write Fahim, and please write your password. I'll write password. All right, since I have written, and now the getters and setters are working. I'm printing Fahim and I'm printing password. I don't have to print. I have to just check in the database whether the username and the password is genuine, right? So the third thing that I'm doing now is, this is the clean process, and this is not even intermediate. This is the advanced level object-oriented programming, right? So now let's go and create a connection. I've already shown you how to create a DB connection, and we will be creating a reusable database connection, and you are aware of that because I've already shown you how to create one for you, right? So let's get going quickly without wasting any time, right? So we will create a class known as DB context. As you know that we already created that, maybe. First thing first, import, right? Make sure that you have done the pip install of mysql.connector, and this is going to be DB context, or we call this as DB connection file, right? So first things first, that is import mysql.connector, right? If you have not done a pip install of this, so I reckon you doing the pip install here, and I'll save this as db context. So this file will be saved as db context, and it's absolutely fine, imported, right? Okay, you have imported the MySQL connector, so you can create class, right? We can create MySQL, right? So we're creating class MySQL, and I am creating variable message just to get the message, right? It's a class variable message, and this will show whether we have been able to get connection or not, right? Just to show whether the database is having problems in connection or not. The second thing that I will define a connection, I'll define a function connect, right? And I will try exception handling because it's going to just give us an exception, all right? Or let's take it afterwards. Let's not handle the exception here. The first thing that we are going to do is define a variable. I'll define a variable right here, connection, right? And this connection is going to take connection from MySQL dot connector dot connect, right? Or you can say import MySQL connector as m, and you can say, right, m dot connect. You can call this as well, right? And you have to pass certain arguments in getting the connection and for getting the connection. And what are those arguments, right? The first thing that you are going to pass is host. What are you going to get connected to? I'll say, hey, my host is local host. Second thing that I will say, that what are you going to do, right? I'll say I am going to pass a username. We just created username and password in the previous video, but yeah, here I'm going to apply the default, which is root, and default password, which is basically password, right? So this is by default what we have, right? So let just me indent it properly, right? So password is nothing, so I'll keep it like this, and we have to pass the name of database, right? And the name of database that we have just created is Python test, right? We know that Python. I reckon you checking all the videos. You should be familiar, and you should be knowing what we did in our previous 2 or 3 videos of MySQL connection, right? And then and only then you'll come here and do this advanced MVC pattern, right? Login screen. So now this database connection is ready, and as I said, it is going to be a static method, right? So it's going to be a static method. So let me run it. Okay, we have some error. Host user password does not have comma here. Run. Absolutely all right. So now what I do right here, right, I'll say, hey, I need to check whether the connection is successful or not. I'll say if this variable connection is successful, if you have successfully made the connection to the database or not. I'll say is, right? I'll say is connected. I repeat, it's going to be dot is underscore, so it's basically is underscore connected, right? If it is connected, only then return back to the function, right, live connection, which is this connection variable right here. Return to the function live connection, right? If it is not, right, then do not return anything, right? So only when it is connected, go and return, right? But yeah, we know exception handling. This can cause exception. So I'll just create a try block, and I'll make sure I hit single tab and keep it inside try block, right? And I will try and catch the exception here. I'll say except, this is catching the exception, right? I'll say except exception as E. So I'm catching the exception as E, and whatever exception we have got, I'll pass that message to here, right? And I will say, all right, MySQL, the class name, I'll call the class name MySQL dot message is equal to E. Whatever exception we are getting, we're passing dash to this message right here. All right, so this is your exception handling being done, right? And we can run it, and there is no error. Why are we getting this? What error is this? Undefined name MySQL. It's the name of the database. All right. All right. And are we undefined name MySQL? Why? Okay. Let's pass self here and say, okay, self.message is equivalent to E. So still getting exception. Okay. I don't know why are we getting this error. So let's not pass. Let's keep MySQL, because we will check it like this. So let's create an object. Because it's a static method now, we don't create object of static methods. We can call it directly. So I can say MySQL dot connect, right? So now if the connection is successful, what you can do, you can print MySQL dot message, right? Call directly. Static methods are called directly. I'm calling the class name and the name of the function directly. And after that, if there's any exception, the database connection has not made, you're passing that message to the message variable. Now we can see unknown database Python. Now you see that it's getting handled. All right. So we'll say Python. Programming error. We still have Python connect. What is it? Python test, not Python connect. So the database name is Python test. Now it's success, right? So if the database is successful, you're returning connection and you say MySQL, right? You can call this, you can call the message is equivalent to connected. Now you can see that what are we getting? Right, so I can say MySQL, right? Call MySQL.message connected. So now we are getting connected right here. If there is any error, right, you're catching the exception in here and say about if there is any error. So let me say, right, so whether we are able to handle that. Yeah, you can say, right, cannot connect to MySQL server on localhost 3306. Now you have to type LOAL. No, it's LOCAL, localhost. Now we have tested the connection. Now we're getting connected. Now that's it. We don't require this, right? The second function that I will create is to close the database method. So I'll say close. But here what we are going to take, we are going to take one thing, that is connection, right? Which connection do you want to close, right? So you're going to pass the connection you want to close as an argument here, right? And you will say CONNECTION connection dot close, and it is basically the function connection dot close. Now that's it, right? We don't require anything else here, and we have to make sure that it is also defined as a static method. So now my database connection is ready. All right, my user interface or presentation logic is ready, or presentation logic is ready, user interface, and my model class is ready. So every single thing is ready for us. Now we have to fire the controller, right? So let me see timing. So we still have ample amount of time left, so we can go and create a new file and call this as, right, ACCOUNTS, accounts controller. So now this is accounts controller. Wait a second. All right, so now the controller is ready. So let's go and find controller or business logic, right? All right. So let's go here and see what we have done here in the view or in the presentation logic. So let me just take it here, recolor, and this is where we have created our login.py. What is the extension of Python file? .py, right? So creating login.py here. Here we are creating this, and here we have created accounts controller, right? So it's going to be accounts controller, and the class is going to be account, right? Okay, Now let's create, the file name is accounts controller and the class is going to be, right, account. So this is the class that we are making, and the first thing we require here in this class is an active database connection. I repeat, we require an active database connection in here. And how do you create that active database connection in here? Just by defining, right, so we will define, let's create this private variable here, connection, right, is equal to none. None is an alternative of none, right, is an alternative of null. So this has been initialized, this variable connection has been initialized by none. Why double underscore? Because I do not want this connection to be accessed outside the class, right? And I will define the init, which is my constructor, right? And what I do in this constructor, now see this, the first thing that I do, I will say self.connection is equal to, now what's the name of the file? The name of the file is db context. Now can we import it? Yes, we have to import it because we have to use it here. So I can say from db context import, right? What do you import? So I'll say from db context import MySQL, as simple as anything. Right, so we have imported this as MySQL, and now once you have imported, this is your connection. This connection will be available throughout the class. Now we can use the connection and we can call the connection and use it anytime I want. All right, and that's why I'll say, right, self.connection will be initialized as soon as an object of accounts class is made. I repeat, as soon as you make an object of accounts class, you are going to call init. It's automatically called after you make an object, an instance of the class. This is the first thing that's going to be called, and you're initializing this connection with your imported MySQL. So you can say MySQL.connect. Now that's the database connection has been initialized. If you see whether that database connection has been actually initialized, create an instance a is equal to account. All right. So after you create an instance of account, say print, right, MySQL.message, and now let's see whether we have been able to get, we are getting connected right here. This is just the test, right? Aren't we getting connected? Yes, we are getting connected. That means as soon as I make an object of the class, the constructor initializes the database, and that is, you know, evident through the message, MySQL.message. I don't want to create it here, just testing. Right, the first thing that I am going to do here is the following, right? This is my accounts, and I'm going to define a function, all right? And the function that is meant to be internally accessed, so I will define is valid login, and I will take an object here, which is an object of users, right? And just say pass here. The second function that I will define, I want them to be only available internally, so I will define is authentic, right? And this function accepts the object of users, and for the time being I'll say pass, right? And the main function I will define here is authorize, right? I'll say users, it's going to accept the object of users, and I'll say pass, right? And now I'll apply encapsulation here, so I'll say define login. So this is the function that I want to be called outside, and it is users, right? And I'll say for the time being pass, right? Okay, all right. Now what this is valid function will do, will say, hey, if users dot get username, get, if users dot get username is equivalent to is not equivalent to empty, and users dot get password, P is capital. Once we were creating the model, I told you to follow coding conventions and to keep this P and this U capital, right? get password is not equivalent to empty. Only when they are not equivalent to empty, return true. If they are empty, right, means if they are empty, so I will say return false. I didn't write else here. If you want, you can write else, right? But I did not write else, because if the code returns true from here, right, and it's returning true to the function, that means this line is never executed. But if this line is executed, right, means this was never executed, right? Because you go in the body of if only when this condition is true. That means return true is only going to happen when the condition here is true. Otherwise, if this is not true, always return false. You can even write else if you want. You can write else. If you want to write else, then you'll have to take it in the body of else. Okay. But in my case, it's not required, so I'll not have else. I'll reduce the amount of code that I write. The first function is doing its job. The second function is authorize. I'll just authorize user by saying user.set message, right? So I'll set the message. I will take the name of the user. So I will say user.get username, right? And I will just concatenate it, right, is logged in. That's it. This is what authorize is going to do. Instead of user, it's actually users. Now you can see. All right. And now this is authentic, and this is where we want to get connected to the database. But yeah, I will just pass a hard-coded logic here, and then we'll get connected to the database to check whether model and each and everything is working fine. So I'll say if users dot get username is equivalent to NIIT, and users dot get password is equivalent to PASS pass, right? If this is so, then return true, and if this is not so, return false, right? Okay, this return true is inside the body of the if. This will return true only if this matches. If this condition is true, both the username and password should match, NIIT and pass. Then you are going to return back to the function true, else you are going to return back to the function false. Authorize is going to set the message, is valid is going to check whether the data is valid or not. So we cannot allow user to call this function outside the class and then this function outside the class, and then this is going to be too hectic for the user. So what I'm going to do and allow user to do is the following. Now I will encapsulate, right? I will integrate and encapsulate all within this login. The first thing that I will do, if, right, and no, we have to call self here. So every function will call self, and this function will also call self, right? So I will say if, right, and now I will use if self dot, first thing that you want to check, if the user is authentic. Authentic means, if, right, self, within this class there is a function valid. If the user is valid, that means I don't want to go to the database and take empty username and password. If username has entered something, if user has entered something as username, if user has entered something in the password field, then and only then we are going to call the remaining functions, right? If self we calling is valid login. Now just let me create a bit of space between these functions. Now the first thing that I'm calling is valid function. It takes one argument, which is users. I will pass the argument right here. User is an object that has every single thing in it. All right, if it is valid, now we find out to be valid, then and only then run second if, right? Okay, and if it is not valid, so I'll go to else and I will say, right, okay, so I will say if it is not valid, I'll go in the body of else, I will say user dot set message, please write a username and a password. That's the first thing that we are doing. And if it is valid, then the second thing that I will check if it is authentic, right? And then I will say if, right, if self dot is authentic, and that authentic function takes one parameter users, and I'll pass the same parameter object of users right here. Then do this. If it is not, I will say else if it is not, and this else belongs to this if, right? So if it is not, so I'll go inside this else and say user dot or users is users so I'll say users dot set message incorrect username or password, right? So now the first thing, when you call this login function, we'll first call is valid. Valid is going to check whether there is blank or something username has entered as username and password, right? Second thing is going to, if it's authentic, check whether the username and password matches, right? If it does not match, pass this message. What if everything goes fine? So I will call self dot, so I'll call the private function authorize, and I will pass the users object here as well. So let me run it. Everything looks fine. All right, so let's try this now. Let me go in the view, right, which is login.py, and say from the file name, from the accounts controller import. What do you want to import? Right, I want to import account, right? So we imported this, and I'll create an object of account. So I'll say acc is equal to, right, the account class object, and now I'll simply do one thing. I'll say acc dot login, right, and I will pass users, right, or no, users is the object of user is you, right? So I'll pass you here. What is you? Is an object of users right here. Now what are you doing? First the class or model object is created, and then you set the username and you set the password. Now you has both the username and you has both the username and the password, and that's why you're passing complete object of model to this login function. And what does it return? So now you can say, hey, I need to get something in return. I will print, right, u dot get, right, message. Now see what it returns. Please write your username. So I will write nothing. So please write a username and password. The first function is working fine. The controller is doing its job. Please write your username. I'll write something wrong, and password as incorrect username or password. So let's run it again. Right now we'll say correct NIIT, and let's say password is pass. Now NIIT is logged in. Now let us go and get connected. That's why each and every function is doing its own job. Now we have to just get connected to the database right here, right? We have to compare the username and password that we are entering is actually in the database. Now these are the usernames and these are the passwords in the database. So here I'm going to use the connection which is already available. We already made the connection with the database, right? I'll go to this authentic function, and this is where I'll do each and everything which is required or which I know I have to do, right? Okay, let's get started. I will say cursor, right? So it's basically I'm defining a variable of type cursor, and I'll say, right, what is the name here? Connection. So I'll call this connection right here. I will say self dot connection, right, dot cursor, right? So I've called the cursor. Now the cursor is going to help me in creating the connection to the database, right? And what is this? Okay, it's not used. Okay, now I'll say cursor, cursor dot execute. What do you want to execute? I want to execute a query. And what is the query? I will say select, right, ID from, and the table name in magic quotes, users. Select ID from users where, right? I repeat, select ID from users where, right? And now you're running a where clause. I will say where user name, right, where username is equivalent to single quote, double quote, and I'll concatenate it with user dot get user name, right? And let me take it here. Let me call where username is equivalent to, let me take it here, where username is equivalent to, right, and I'll say plus right here. So let me close it down and say plus. Let me open and say, alright, so whether this works fine or not. Yeah, it's not users, users, right, where username is equal to users dot get username, right? If it's going to cause problem to you, you can run it in a single line, so it's recommended to run it in a single line. You can do this, users dot get username, right, and inside single quotes the database attribute name password is equivalent to, we're writing database attribute like where username is equivalent to something that user has entered and password is equivalent to something that user has entered. It's going to search automatically, and password is equivalent to single quote, double quote, plus plus users dot get password. Now the query is ready, right? So the query is a test the query, right? How do you test this query? Right, I will say, hey, wait a second, I want to print, all right, this, what is in the cursor. So let's see what's in the cursor. All right, so let's call a login here. So I'll say enter your username Fahim and enter your password as passw. Right, so we're getting select ID from user. So now copy this, where users is equal to user dot get username and password is equal to users dot get password. So it's absolutely fine. So we don't have any problem. Right, it's absolutely fine. So just use parentheses here because get username is a function right here. Okay, and then I will not print the cursor, but I will say I will create a record is equivalent to cursor dot fetch one. I don't want to fetch all, I want to run only one record, because you can either, if the username and password matches, you're going to get one record only because you're not allowing duplicates, right? So that's how we create database, right? And now we will say, I will say if record, right, is equivalent to true, all right, I can use this. If record is equivalent to true, return true, or else return false. That's it. Right, so that's it. Now it's going to check inside the database whether the record is found or not. So let me save this, go to my view, right, and now the first time, please enter your username. Let me enter something correct, Naveed Bhatt. Right, please enter your password. What is the password? Password is password. Right, now you get unknown column ID in the, okay, I just do this mistake every single time. It is select user ID, not ID, because you can clearly see there's no attribute ID, this is user ID right here. Okay, let me go to the login page again and say Naveed Bhatt and password is password. So incorrect username and password YNAVEED, but so now we have some problem here. I'll go ahead and say that let me print the record. Alright, so let me print the record here. So why are we getting this error? So we'll see that. So I'll say Fahim. Okay, let me see. Fahim Khan and password, it's here. Username and password. Fahim Khan and password is password. So we get incorrect username and password. So why do I get incorrect username and password? So that's a problem. So I didn't even print the record right here. right? So we have to just find a reason of why are we getting this kind of an error right here. We should not get this kind of an error. Select user ID from users, right, where username is equivalent to this, right? So we can say record is equivalent to cursor dot fetch 1. You're fetching 1. Cursor is equivalent to self dot connection dot cursor. Okay. So record should have something. So we have to print this record right here. I don't know. Let me go ahead and type again. Password is password. So we still get 6. You're fetching the record 6. Now you can clearly see the record is being fixed 6. Yeah, we are getting ID 6. We are doing it wrong here. Sorry. Okay, we are not doing it wrong because we are printing only. So I will say if record, right, is not equivalent to none, right? If the record that you are fetching, if that record has something, is not equivalent to none. So I can say return true. Instead of true and false, we have to use none. You remember the previous lecture, we use none. If nothing is fetched, record is going to have none, means username and password is not found. If it is not none, that means something is found. So I'll say return true, else I will say return false, right? So now let's see. Save this, run this. Okay. Okay, now let's see. Please write your username. So let's pick a random username here, Majid Khan. So I'll write MAJIDKHEN, and password is password. So we still false spelling mistake. What is return false is? It's return false. I do this every time. I don't know. Okay, let me try for the final time. MAJID Majid, KHEN, and password is password. So now incorrect username or still getting incorrect username and password. MAJID. Okay, Majid password. The password is something different here. So let's try and match with the username and password. So I'll say MAJIDKHEN, and what is the password right here? You can see password is Majid passwords. So I'll copy. Majid Khan is logged in. Now you're testing it, checking it in the database. I repeat, so let me try something else in the database. We have Farheen, and password is password. Username is Farheen, so I'll say FARHEEN. I want to log in, and password is password. You can see Farheen is logged in. If I write something wrong, it's not going to allow me. First, is valid is tested. Please write a username and password. And second time, if you write something wrong, right? So incorrect username and password, complete model view and controller view. And the third thing that you are doing here is, let me test Zahid Wani and password ZAHIDWANI, and password is password. PASSS is not going to be fine, so it is going to be password as PASSWORD. So now Zahid Wani is logged in. Now see, this is all what you are doing here, and everything else has been done in the back end, right? Call the users and call the controller, right? Call the model, call the controller, right? Pass data to the model, right? And pass model to the login class object, which is basically login function of the login accounts controller. And login is going to do the thing. If the data is valid, if it's not, message is going to be given back, right? And check if it is authentic. If it's not, message is going to be given back. And if everything goes fine, authorize. What is authorize doing? Logged in, right? So this is the 100% pure model view and controller designing pattern with complete professional and advanced model 2 design being used, and professional model, we can say object-oriented approach in Python being applied, right? So practice this very hard, right? So next is going to be register, and then we are going to get done with this part of core programming with Python, right? I wish you all the best, and do remember me in your prayers, and do practice very hard. In case of any confusion and any problem, you can call me and WhatsApp me, right? But yeah, you have 24 hours to complete this. It's very simple. And now those who have understood what is happening right here, right, are very good. So they are doing wonders and miracles. And those who have not understood still can do, or they can practice this 4 times, 5 times, right, and try and do it yourself so that you understand. Without practice, you are not going to understand. This class requires, for those who have not understood, a practice of minimum 6-7 hours. Be patient and practice unless you understand. Don't get up, right? It's going to solve your purpose, and it's going to solve and make your future easy. I wish you good luck, right? Do remember me in your prayers, and this is what is more valid, and this is what's more advanced in Python that you should know, right? If you know that, and then I already congratulate you. Bye bye, take care.